Well, in Australia, people in Batemans Bay, that's south of Sydney, are struggling to escape raging bushfires. Those trying to get out face traffic jams and road closures. The situation is predicted to worsen, with a state of emergency to take effect in New South Wales later today. My next guest had to flee the fire and smoke in Batemans Bay. Bacina is a Canadian expat. She was in the coastal town with her family when the flames threatened, and we reached her safely back home in Sydney this morning. Leanne, thanks for your time. Let's talk about your journey home and what made you decide to leave.
Oh, you have to go if you possibly can. There was no power for 30 hours. I think it was on the 31st. We did an early run for supplies, and it was getting a bit smoky. And we were the last shoppers in the grocery store, and they said, we're closing the store at 9 a.m. Everyone, you get 10 minutes to go to the till, and that's going to be it. And we just grabbed flashlights and batteries and candles and what food we could. And then by just after about 9:30 in the morning, we got a warning on our cell phones, and they said that the fire front was approaching and that we needed to seek shelter now. And to be honest, Batemans Bay has always been the evacuation point for all the southern coastal towns. So we always thought Batemans was safe. We never thought it was under threat. So it was absolutely shocking to get that warning and know that it was actually too late to leave.
Now, I was just going to say, this was supposed to be a family vacation, right? Where were you staying?
Yes. Yeah, on our friend's apartment on the waterfront in Batemans. And it was very lucky because as the fire came in, the golf course across from us caught flame. There was a fireball that went up from the gas canister there. The street in behind us caught flame. And then our backup plan was just to wade into the water and go to the break wall if we had to. But then across the bay also caught flame. And there was also active fire just down the street as well. And the road north was also closed. So you were really blocked in every direction. And I asked the caretaker of the apartment, I said, is there somewhere safer we should be? And he just looked at me and said, there's nowhere to go. So it was really scary. By about noon, the sky turned red. And it was, to be honest, that was terrifying. It was filled with smoke. That was really, really intense. I wasn't sure that we were going to make it out of that.
So when you say we, who are the personnel that are with you? Which family members are with you?
Yeah, so I've got my 6-year-old little girl, I've got my 9-year-old boy, my husband, and my husband's sister's family, which is her and her husband, and they also have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Okay, the skies have turned red. There are flames bursting out all over. The stores are closed. You've been told there's nowhere safer to go. So how do you make that decision, and where do you go?
There's only one thing you can do, and you just shelter where you are, and you just hope it stays safe. So luckily, my husband had prepared the yard. He put water down. He'd raked up. We did what we could to prepare for ember attack. And just hoped for the best. And we were lucky that the building we were in didn't catch fire. So that was fortunate. But even after the fire front passed, there was no power for 30 hours. There was only one mobile phone company that gave any service, and that was patchy at best. That was so three of us had no mobile service whatsoever. And that was scary. So we tried to leave yesterday, and we tried to go south and do a massive loop around through Canberra. And Google Maps suggested one way was open if you hugged the coast. But when we tried, there was literally active fires. We saw fires burning on the side of the road. Trees were down on the roads that were actually open. And it just wasn't physically possible, even though we thought it might be. That was pretty scary as well. We saw one car that had been crushed by a falling tree. And so we just had to turn around and just come back to Batemans and back to where we were. And we got together with neighbors, and everyone shared food. And we just did what we could. And then we had a friend who works for we knew somebody here that told us that the road might be opening at 6 a.m. And we got up about 4:45 this morning, and all the information I had on my phone, which is the service was patchy, was that the road was still closed north, and I was actually worried about going north and wasting the fuel we had to go north because the petrol stations were down, some had limited fuel. But luckily at 5 a.m. there was a window where we were able to make it north, but street signs were literally charred, melted. The smoke was really thick. It was really, really intense. And then after us, people who tried to leave by 7 a.m. got caught in traffic and the road closed again. And people, I've just heard recently that it's reopened in convoys, that they're trying to have escorted convoys out with the fire service. So it's been pretty scary.
Absolutely, and you've done an amazing job of describing what appears to be an apocalyptic landscape all around you. You said you had young kids. How did they handle all of this?
You know, they were absolutely brilliant, and we were very relieved. We just tried to keep them busy with card games and couch cubbies, and we just, you know, try and use their imaginations. We just told them that, you know, there was an emergency situation and we were going to do our best, and they needed to listen carefully. And when we gave them directions, they had to follow it immediately and precisely. But they really took it well. They were champions.
Well, they will have an adventure to talk about for the rest of their lives, as will you. Leanne, thank you so much for a remarkable description of what you went through, and we're all glad to know you and your family are back home safely in Sydney. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks very much, John.
Bacina is a Canadian living in Australia, and we reached her safe and sound in Sydney.